bad could it be? Yeah.
Yes.
And still wear the face masks and practice good hygiene.
Good hygiene. Now, you don't like being reminded of your age. You love being the one to tell
No,
us that you are.
because age. What
Wait,
is
wait
age?
now. I
Age
never
is neither-
finished the thing
Okay,
now.
sorry,
Make you
sorry,
hear
sorry,
me
sorry,
now.
sorry.
Which
Okay,
one?
Okay.
See, in regular society, everybody will be calling you senior citizen, elder statesman, and all that.
No.
But all of those things don't resonate with you.
No.
How does it feel to be a grandfather?
I don't feel any different. I feel the same way I felt 30, 40 years ago.
But how do you
not a big
relate
deal.
with your grandchildren?
I have 16. Oh, like my relationship with my children, not like father and son. They're like two adults, two playful, spoiled kids. And that's the way I like it, because my children tell me everything. You can't imagine sometimes I'm dazed by what they're saying to me, but I try not to show it, so they will always feel that they have a hip father, that I'm with the times, because the kind things where they come out for their mouth, I say, okay, let me bond them anyway. And when I remember as I shaking my parents too, I would just laugh. I go, calm down for Jesus, because what goes around comes around.
It comes around. I wish your mom were alive.
No, my mom, I had a good time with my mom after my father left. It was 3 years, so all the love was showered on her. And my mom pulled the biggest trick. I don't think she knew that I would have loved to be with her as she passes along, but she waited till I traveled when I wasn't around and decided to leave. And for a few days I didn't forgive her about that. I thought it was that wasn't the plan. But yes, I had fun with my mother. I always joked about her vision, and that's why I call her a witch, because she was very futuristic in her thinking.
She was like a prophetess to you.
Precise.
So the kind witch where you say your mama carry, you never seen type before. Why?
Simple. She was very futuristic, forward thinking. She held my father. That woman held the house. My father was a player, but my mom tamed him and tamed all of us, more or less.
But she was also very soft towards you.
Oh, yes, because she was the first to see that boy in me. She used to call me from the very first day I did hear something. I could comprehend things. She used to always call me Charlie Boy. So that's how that name came about, because that was my pet name.
So the Charlie Boy actually came from her?
Yes. Yeah. That's why they call her witch. Yeah. And when people want to get into issues about how old are you, I say, I beg when I leave that thing. If my mama be witch, waiting it is, I have vampire blood now. What do I have to do with old age?
You had your first child at 17.
At 16.
16?
Yeah. I'm from Bele spoil now.
From Bele?
From Bele.
Tell me.
Now make, if to say all these funny pastors, they for that time, night vigil, them for the carry me go, deliverance. Yeah,
But your mom took care of your first child. What's your relationship with him now?
I didn't even agree that it was my child now. Now, when I come, things begin work out for me, that I became more mature, that I went back to look for him. But then, At that time, we were supposed to be in school, not going around and getting,
somebody
getting women
pregnant.
pregnant.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
But your mom did not, she didn't give up on you.
No, just like I can't give up on my kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I told you, children are like monkey see, monkey do. I've always seen my mom and my father together since I was born.
Yes.
Even when they have challenges and issues, before I turn my head the other way, I see them stealing kisses, holding hands, you know.
And that's why you're still with your wife.
I guess, because I wanted to be better than what I saw. You understand?
Would you give yourself a pass mark now? Or would you grade yourself, looking at their sheet and your sheet?
Yes, I've tried.
You've
45 years is no more now.
Yes.
Staying with somebody, no. The same smell, the same body, the same face, the same routine. I try. Over-try worry me.
Something to say to her.
She's my best friend. She
Okay.
knows that.
Look into the camera and tell her.
I don't have to be looking into the camera to tell her. She knows what she knows, and that's why we're all dying here. Nobody's going anywhere.
All right, we're about to round off this session of talk, but we won't go without talking about how to sustain older people in their old age. You're an old man now. What are your needs? What really are the needs of an older person?
You see, I'm always, like I say, I'm such an exceptionally blessed person. Only God fit understand. Okay? The kind blessing where I get, sometimes I don't think I deserve it because it could have gone the other way.
Yeah.
You understand? But I think that I'm living my life on purpose because I'm doing really what God had always intended for me to do via people.
Yeah.
I love people. I don't like to see suffering, people in agony. So my heart is always going out for the underdogs. And I got that from my mom. My mom was generous to stupidity. And my father had a little bit of that. And I know that I'm not even supposed to be alive as I'm talking to you. No, because my youth was rough. I got into all kinds of things. Okay? Even drugs. But I healed myself because those were the American years.
Dark days.
Yeah. And I said to myself, this is not how I was brought up. So why are you doing this? I had to even go and see a shrink to figure out, to say something wrong with me or my, only to be told that what activated my misbehavior at the time was the racism I experienced one-on-one in America. At the time, I was with my baby mama. Her sister came to visit. So there were two white women. And here I was sandwiched between two white women. We're just taking a leisure walk downtown Boston. And then 7 white, excuse my language, white trash comes out of the Cadillac, all with a baseball bat, nigger this, nigger that, just because I was walking with 2 white chicks. One was the mother-to-be of my baby boy. Then beat me that day. I thought I was going to die. The only thing that saved me that day was the police. You know, as police just they go around everywhere and are crime now. So they thought that, the white women I was with had run up to call the police. That's how they let me out. That's how I was saved. And I ended spending almost 5 weeks in the hospital. I never forgot that experience. That was just barely 8 months staying in America. I never thought I had racism in my blood. But then my hatred was potent because I just couldn't figure it out. In our house in Port Harcourt, when my father was a lawyer, he was a legal attorney to Mobile and stuff like that. So we did see Yoruba people, they come house. I didn't think that there were any, I look at them as equals, not as superior to me. Only to go to America, then they ask me where I sabi speak English, whether I live in trees and all that crap, and to call me a nigger. So it wasn't till I saw the shrink when I was now questioning my modus operandi in America. Why am I doing all the stuff that I'm doing? That is kind of alien, you know? That came up.
Okay.
And that was how I was healed, and I said, I'm getting out of this country. I agree now, sir, old. No be lie you talk.
So what
But
does
Charlie
an
boy
old man
can be
need?
old, you know now.
Yeah, now.
Me as Charles, but I agree. No be me they talk now. Sometimes I wake up, my knee is not in the right position. Either my neck don't bend, go one side. You know, little things like that. I'm more into myself, always checking my prostate, checking this, checking that, you know, as a health freak.
What does a man need, an old person need to survive now?
An old person needs a lot of companionship.
Companionship?
If you have children that are good, that are like Charlie Boy, who took care of his parents, that will make, you age so gracefully. And because an old person needs to surround himself with family and a lot of love.
Okay.
It can bring sunshine to your life.
Good health?
Good health is a sequence of where you are financially. So if you're a little okay, I think that's a major investment that everybody should make in themselves to make sure all the things are working when they should.
So let me throw you this final one now. All right. Are you okay financially?
Am I okay? Financially. Is Dangote okay financially?
On that note, thank you very much for coming on the program. You didn't disappoint me at all. I was expecting something like that. Thank you so much, Charlie Boy, for coming on the show. That's how we greet now. Eh?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Nice having you. I hope to come back so we can talk again and look at deeper, other deep stuff.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and listen to the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
My name is Akin Adeoya. Let me add my voice to this laudable project, the Good Old Days series. My major focus will basically be on my passion for reading while growing up, the extent I went in funding this habit, lessons learned, and values associated with the correctional methods employed by my dear mother of blessed memory. How did this adventure into Storyland begin? My earliest memory of how it all started was my mom gathering us for informal afternoon and weekend storytelling sessions. She would tell us the irresistible and fantastic stories by authors like Sir Rider Haggard, King Solomon's Mines, by Shakespeare, The Merchant of Venice, and the like. Yes, she clearly had fun telling these stories with the way she used to repeat the names of some of the characters with emphasis. Truhala the King, Gagool the Wish, Captain John Good. Firstly, let me share what I call my carton room experience and how it shaped my views in my growing up years. Though of Ifaki Kiti origin, I grew up in Sapele and Lagos. The carton room was a room devoted to storing hundreds of cartons of Skol beer, either empty or full, because my mom used to be a beer distributor for an Ughelli-based company called Superbrew, and even ran a chemist on the side. At the same time, she was a nurse, a midwife with Sapele Health Center. The carton room was my secret hiding place. I loved to go there and do things privately. At just about 12, I already had a whole need for privacy. You see, the many cartons provided a million hiding places for my secret things. Not all the things I did there was bad. That was the room, sitting among the scattered cartons and bottles, where my innocence was shattered, reading hundreds of pulp fiction novels and plays. In that private world, nothing outside mattered. All I wanted to do was get up and run to the neighborhood bookshop to get the next James Harley Chase or some Pacesetter paperback. In my mind, I had an easy familiarity with America, England, Vietnam, Russia, and many of the great cities of the world. Even though I had never been there, I was a citizen of the world by virtue of my readings. My eventual adventure into African stories gave me a powerful sense of identity. From Chinua Achebe's Arrow of God to Ngugi wa Thiong'o's The River Between, Grain of Wheat, Kamala Laye's Weep Not Child, to Aiki Uyama's The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born. It was a wildfire of politics, mystery, romance, war, and peace, all in the mix. Mine was the story of a young man in formation. Let me quickly reveal that I also love to steal into Olympia Cinema, which used to be very famous in Sapele at the time. It was at the very end of Okpe Road, the most commercial road in Sapele, to watch Indian movies and other popular American movies. I also had a once-in-a-lifetime experience of watching the epic by Hubert Ogunde titled Jayesimi. This was in the early 80s. How does the 12-year-old finance this rich taste in books, music, and culture? I started by helping myself to leftover coins on the table, by the bedside, in the pockets. I became bolder in my desperation to finance my addiction. I would pop into Dad's room and rummage through his jacket. Sometimes I would watch Mommy's use milk tin, where she used to keep money from sales. Many times I was caught in the act, and then my parents, both of them, would unleash hell. I would get an insane flogging with the used fan belt of my father's car. It was terrible. But my mother could see that the beatings were not working, that the stone in my heart was gradually becoming a diamond, and that if nothing was done, this boy could go over the edge. One day she caught me red-handed, then walked into the carton room, looked straight into my eyes and asked, "My son, Aki, should I kneel down for you?" This struck me as very odd and I stiffened. I could see the tears well up in her eyes and almost broke my heart in two. How can I cause her so much pain? This woman that I love so much. It was this time a different kind of fear, born of love and admiration. She continued, "Don't you know it is very wrong to steal? That's why I want to kneel down to beg you to stop. It will destroy your life if you don't stop. Pause and touch me. That's why I want to kneel and beg you to stop. Let me kneel." I was alarmed that she would do it. It suddenly occurred to me that this wasn't a game between me and my parents, that there was something much bigger at stake. It was my very first attempt to grasp the eternal conflict between utility and morality. Until this day, I can still hear the clanging as the coins dropped. You must promise me never to do this again. And that was it. One amazing thing about her was she never doubted my word. And also, I never lied to her. Lessons learned. If your child lies to you, that means you must have been overreacting to his past errors. Take it easy, parents. Now, let's leave those childhood fantasies and talk about the reading culture. How many of our children these days crave for reading books and stories that can enrich their knowledge and broaden their views on global matters? Do we even have mentors who are willing to ignite the youth's passion for reading? Just like my mother did, I once read a sad commentary that if you want to hide an item from an African, you don't want him to find it, hide it inside the book, because he will never open to read it. So sad. That was not the norm in those good old days. How did we get here? How or when did that passion and quest for knowledge take flight in our lives as a nation? What do we need to do to bring back those cherished good old days when we compete with the number of books read and not with the number of social outings attended? Is it too late to change the narrative? No. We can bring back that reading culture. Our children must not only be told these stories, they must be made to read them. The will to make the difference is all we need. Our children certainly deserve a brighter and better tomorrow, not the good old days. I therefore join Sir Shemore Badijo in this collective drive towards a greater tomorrow. Thank you.
Politicizing our humanity. You see, Nigeria today has become a den of unknown gunmen. And I say that because for every new report you see now, any news, anything, you see unknown gunmen kills 20, unknown gunmen kidnaps 50. So any small thing is unknown gunmen. And the level of insecurity in the country today has risen. You know, so today we no longer ask whether our lives are, and properties are secured. We only ask who is next to be killed or kidnapped. You know, we check and we see, okay, whose family is next? Which family is going to be thrown into mourning? So right now, Nigerians are only waiting, and we're waiting and saying, whose turn is it going to be? The level of insecurity in the country has become extremely worrisome. The lapses created by government, by the inaction of government. You know, government had the opportunity to nip this insecurity in the bud. You know, when it started. You know, it started like play. It wasn't this bad. It wasn't this bad. But now, because of government's inaction, we are caught up. And it seems as if there's nothing that we can do about it again. So now it is even worse. It is worse that we as citizens are not making enough noise about the right things. We are concerned about some other things. So despite the worrisome state of our dear nation, the plague of politicizing any little thing. You know, we are quick to say, now this party they run amo, now this party they do amo, is because of this party. And so right now, we are trivializing the problems and the challenges that we are facing as a nation. You know, so there are talks all over social media claiming that the violence and actions leading to the high level of insecurity, which now threatens our very existence, are sponsored. Members of the ruling and opposition parties have thrown all caution to the wind, and they exchange blames. It is this party, it is that party, rather than just actually recognizing terrorism for what terrorism is and taking actions to stop the incessant killings and kidnappings, which is threatening the very existence of Nigerians. We must stand united or fall divided. We must stand united. Nigeria is at the very brink. We are at the very brink of war. You know, and I don't think we are saying this enough. I think everyone is just looking at, okay, maybe because the thing never touched me, make we just they look up, and everyone is just playing with the situation. The situation has become so dire and would worsen if we do not join voices and actions and implore the government to take decisive actions to protect the lives and properties of the people. We must educate and reorientate ourselves. We must advocate for peace and tolerance. Negative and irresponsible tribal comments, you know, it has no other thing to do than to incite violence. So it breeds this intolerance that we have for ourselves, and this tribe will say, now these people, if these people come out, we go get peace and all of those things. And then we wonder why some people are killing another tribe, and why another tribe is killing another tribe. So I feel we must be able to preach peace and preach unity, you know, if at all we want to see the end of this insurrection. I have always said this, and I think this is time to say it again. In terms of, if we're talking about security, I think the time for decentralization is now. The power that the federal government wields as far as security is concerned is too much. And it would seem that even that power now is overwhelming, such that they don't even know what to do with the power again. Assign state governments with the task of security responsibilities. Yes, at federal government level, there are some powers that you cannot just take away. But let the security apparatus, in the police, security operatives that you have, let them be responsible to state governments. Let state governments take charge. Let them take charge. A governor of a particular state will not be looking at while his state is burning, and the governor is crying to federal government to come and help. So what then is the duty, and what then is the work of the state government? You know, we had mentioned earlier, but I'm just going to chip in again, that religious leaders have a role to play. You find religious leaders being totally irresponsible and reckless with the comments that they make, knowing fully well the power that you wield as a religious leader, knowing fully well the hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people that listen to you and take your word as law. You need to be very careful. You need to be cautious of how you urge people on, because comments that you make in ways incite violence against perhaps other religions, and then you have this religion attacking this religion. Oh, they attacked us first. Oh, they attacked us first. So I think now is the time for our religious leaders to come together and preach peace and tolerance. Is very important. So once again, I would say conclusively that I think we need there's never been a time to call for peace and to call for tolerance and to call for unity as now, using our voices, using our platforms to advocate for peace. Because at the end of the day, like I said,
today on The Breakfast, petitions have continued to arise even as the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party in Lagos, Jando, files a petition against Sanwo-Olu and Vivo over Electoral Act breach. Also on The Breakfast, leaders of three main tribes of Benue State bemoans the recent killings. They urge the president to declare state of emergency in the country without further delay. And don't forget, we'll also be looking through today's newspapers and analyzing the biggest stories of the day. Good morning and welcome to the Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. My name is Messi Bokbo and we are broadcasting live from our studios right here in Victoria Island in Lagos, Nigeria. It's very exciting to know that you're there with us this morning. The lineup is very interesting, but as always, we like to talk about what's happening in different parts, of the world. Now, specifically our space, Nigeria, whether online or offline. Now, one conversation that's been making the rounds is that an individual was actually arrested or apprehended by the men of the military for impersonation. So yes, a yet to be identified man in a military uniform was arrested for impersonating soldiers in the FCT. The suspect was arrested after he couldn't answer basic military questions or provide who his superiors were in the military ranks. There's a viral clip to that particular effect. The suspect was also quoted to say, "Please forgive me," and all of that, when he couldn't answer some of the questions where this military, very angry soldiers, you don't even want to be confronted with them. However, we can, for sure say if the punishment meted out to the suspect would deter him from impersonating officers who put their lives at risk to protect, the Nigerian citizen. But we'll just take a break. I don't know, can we hear what he's saying here? If we can, then we'll quickly just run this tape now.
Who is your CSF? 1 to 3 is your CSF. Who's your CSF? 1 to 3. Who give you this? Soldier. Are you a soldier?
You did not see an idiot.
Are you a soldier?
We're complete.
Are you a soldier? Eh? Are you a soldier? Talk now. Are you a soldier? You are not a soldier. Why are you putting on this camera? Who is your CSF? Who is your CSF? 1 to 3. 1 to 3 is your CSF. Who's your CSF? 1 to 3.
Who give you this? Soldier.
Are you a soldier?
You did not see an idiot.
Are you a soldier?
We're complete.
Are you a soldier? Eh? Are you a soldier? Talk now. Are you a soldier? You are not a soldier. Why are you putting on this camera?
That's it. But usually there's a statement that says if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. And impersonation, as much as we look at it, it goes beyond just wearing a camouflage. That's like full flat. If I see him, it probably might just be difficult to identify whether or not he's, really a military personnel or not. I mean, he looks very kitted, right? But these are some of the issues that we have to grapple with as a people in our society. And I think that there's a lot of work that has to be done. All hands must be on deck. It's a collective responsibility. Government is involved, military, you and I, we're all involved in all of this. But just to speak to, the facts, is that Section 484 of the Criminal Code Act in Nigeria speaks to the issue of impersonation. It's general, so it's not just related to whether you're impersonating a military personnel or an officer, just a specific group. Impersonation has been captured within this part, of the law. And it says that it's in general. So impersonation in general, any person who with intent to defraud any person, falsely represent himself to be someone, other person, living or dead, is guilty of felony and is liable to imprisonment for 3 years. I think that we need to do better as a people, because there's no way you're going to have a perfect society. And of course, we know that perfection is an illusion, but however, we're saying seeming perfection. We can't continue like this. I mean, what's the rationale behind you dressing like a military officer? Only God can tell, because that's what we say. How many persons he has intimidated, frustrated, beaten, done all sorts of things to, all in the name of wearing that. So, but there's several lessons to take away from this. Is the fact that, first of all, as a security, as a military, if we look at the military as part of the entire government or part of the Nigerian polity, then I think that there's a lot of work that has to be done in terms of, beefing up the features of security. So it's almost impossible for you to impersonate a military officer or the military itself. Okay, so I think that the problem might just be a lacuna because there's so much accuracy in everything, the uniform. There should be some features that it's almost impossible for people can actually dictate and say, hey, so, I mean, we're just saying, we have no facts to all of this. How many persons would have fallen prey for this young man in the video? Now he's begging, he's pleading, but that's a crime. And the law speaks about it explicitly. It has nothing to do whether it's a military, but, impersonation generally, you probably have to pay for all of that. So at this particular point, I think it's very important that we pay attention, the military pays attention to ensuring that security features for kids and what have you, it's top notch. That is almost impossible for anyone to actually impersonate without the ordinary person having to think twice and can say, hey, this is a fake, right? Because you can say for sure that a lot of persons would have fallen victim. But it's important that you know that we have a law to that. And if you try to act like me or I try to act like you in any way, whatever the intentions are, it is a crime because the Criminal Code 484 has actually stipulated. And then you probably would have to do a time of 3 years in prison. So yes, if you can't do the crime, please, or can't do the time, don't bother doing the crime. And we can't continue to excuse bad behavior and, just act irrational and think that things will just get away. So apart from the fact that, yes, this military personnel sounded very angry, we can't say what had happened after that time that was being videoed or captured. But we don't expect that they would just, he would be let off just like that. We also expect that they will be handed over to the relevant authority, which is actually the police, and justice would actually take precedent. That's it. And away from that, there's also another conversation that's gotten a lot of people talking is that the police in Oyo State have arrested suspect in connection with the death of Adeshina Olayinka, an Instagram cloth vendor who was found dead in a hotel in Ibadan. The suspect is actually in custody of State Criminal Investigation Department right there in Ibadan. Now, however, it was reported that the staff of the hotel disclosed that Olayinka stopped breathing before they arrived at the hotel, and when it was discovered, she was still breathing, but quickly called on police, and unfortunately, she died before getting to the hospital. However, the suspect, they've been called on the suspect to inform about the incident. He rushed down to the hotel to present himself to the police. I mean, it's a different story. I mean, there are different stories to this particular one. But what we can say is there are too many lessons to take away from this. Several blogs actually took out this report. There were different reports to it, and there are different lessons that we can learn. Just as much as we're expecting that the relevant authorities will pay attention to it. That's the security agencies will pay attention to, what it is, go ahead with the entire process, investigate, and ensure that justice has to be served, because that's the only way people would have to learn. If people know that you will do the time for every crime that you commit, then it would serve as a deterrent. We probably would be saying, oh, we are lawless people. We're not a lawless people. It's because, the laws have not been invoked, and people just think that you can do anything and get away with it. So if we eventually get to a point where we have a system where you no longer have strong persons, but you have strong institution, the law would take its course to the latter. It doesn't matter whoever it is that you are in the society, including myself. And so, yes, that's exactly when we know that we've gotten to the part of the society. But we talk about the lessons because if you are very swift on the internet or social media, then I'm probably sure that you have run across this particular story of this young lady. And some people say, oh yeah, she probably has a very decent job or business where she promotes, but other people say on the other side, I mean, she's committed to extracurricular activities, probably to just earn extra money for whatever reason, and that has actually happened. But I think that accountability, whether to family, friends, it's also very important at every point in time. It's not actually a reason of control. I also think that it's important that we do our due diligence before we get to meet and interact with people. The days are probably evil. You can't compare the times that we're in 2023 20 years behind. Things were quite different. People had the luxury of, just stopping by someone's house and having a meal. But, the days we're evolving and times are pretty, different. But this is actually also a challenge to the men of the Nigerian police force to ensure that what is right is done. Investigation is done to the letter, and whoever is involved, the culprits must be brought. The truth, justice must be served, and that's the only way we can move forward in a democratic dispensation. And just before we move away to a paper review this morning, there's been also a development where Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State has extended the retirement age of teachers in state by 5 years. Okay, so teachers in the state have the privilege, to stay for up to 5 years. And this was contained in a circular from the Borno State Teaching Service Board signed by the Permanent Secretary, Malam Yusuf, that reported the incident. And then President, you also remember that President Muhammadu Buhari had given a nod to 4 bills recently passed by the National Assembly, including harmonizing retirement age for teachers in Nigeria Act, that's according to 2022. The Act also provides for the retirement age of teachers in the country. If you look at Section 1 of the Act, that states that teachers in Nigeria shall compulsorily retire on when they get to the age of 65 or 40, pensionable service, whichever, or earlier, while the provision of Section 3 of the Act provides that the public service rule or any legislation that requires a person to retire from public service at 60 years of age or about 35 service shall not apply to become a teacher in Nigeria. Honestly, I can't speak for other climes, but there's this song that's very popular. There's this particular song that's very popular. If you, I don't know, but I probably would think that everyone could really relate with this particular song. It says, that's the song used to saying, since I was young and now I'm getting old, you haven't seen certain stuff. I can't say what it is. So you can insert the words right there. But we live in a different climate. Our policies, everything seems to be a bit different, and you can't say. I think that if you look at what's peculiar to us, you get to a certain age, I think that the body needs to rest. Some sort of rest is required. Those who have committed time to service, we need to pay attention to that. Also need to look at life expectancy for us, because it's peculiar to us as a people. And I really do not I begin to question when we have to add like extras, to the people, and then it feels like, okay, then you have an option, right? We also need to pay attention. 35 years is a lot of time to put into service, and exactly what are we communicating? What's the rationale behind that? And for those who are, because it's not because if you put more time, then you're going to be more comfortable, and then you're going to have access to, the basic things of life. There's no guarantee to all of that. So what's the rationale behind the extra? And for the people who have done 35 years and what exactly has been their case and situation? You find that people still have to queue, still have to protest for what they have actually earned. Now, that's not a fair system. Honestly, that's what we have to say. But I think that nothing is impossible because it's not rocket science. And then I think we live in a climate where if we are committed to the people that have elected us, or that we find ourselves representing, because that conversation is very broad, then we have to be committed, to their welfare. Because primarily, if you look at the Constitution, it is government's responsibility to ensure that lives and properties, the welfare of the people is taken care of. That's in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And the welfare is encompassing. It's not limited to a certain thing. It's not just limited to basic amenities. It's government's duty. That's the essence why government exists, to ensure that you will provide X, Y, Z, in turn, and the people will respect the laws. So yes, again, we say, what's the humanity? What's exactly the conscience? For every other time you have people saying we want to become governor, president, chairman of local government, what's the rationale behind it? Let's look at these people who put 35 years, extending, adding extra 5 years, what exactly would that amount to? Is there a guarantee that they'll have a perfect life? 35 years after, what can they account for? No, that's the size of it this morning on our top trending. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll be looking through the papers this morning. We call it Off the Press. Please stay with us.
Everyone talks about getting their dream jobs, but what does it take to get that dream job? In a religious society like Nigeria, some people resort to prayer, but did you know that sometimes the only reason you're not getting the job isn't because you don't have the credentials? Many times about how well you can defend your credentials through your presentation and communication skills during the interview. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the rate of unemployment in Nigeria rose to 33.3% in December 2020 from a 27.1% in 3 months. Interview phobia is a major issue that contributes to unemployment in the country. Some individuals are employable but don't know how to express themselves properly, present their resumes, and network effectively. An expert spoke to us about interview phobia and how it has increased the rate of unemployment within the country.
Okay, so I mentioned I struggled. I went to Lagos State University, public university. Nobody taught you any of these things. And so I thought that if I come to the interview space, I would do well because I know I'm good enough. But coming in, it was difficult. I got plenty of rejections. And I made up my mind that if you can get past this thing, you would help other people who are also like you. And so sitting down in that space, I also see people like me and I feel for them.
According to Student Graduate Report, more than 50% of graduates in Nigeria disclose that communication skill is the least skill their academic education prepared them with.
Like we have a compulsory NYSC every year. I believe the government or the educational sector should do something like when they know somebody's in their final year, maybe they allow them go through a month or so, or they introduce a course and make it mandatory for them to be able to go out there and face the outside world when it comes to interviews, when it comes to networking and all of that. I've seen super amazing, intelligent people lost opportunities because they were not confident, and those who were not so smart but have built their confidence are able to get the job and get these networks and get these opportunities. Especially when you come from a Yoruba or Igbo family where you don't have to look at your dad in the eye. You get that kind of thing. So you have to learn to look at people in the eye when you talk to them. It makes them believe that you are not up to something. You're not hiding anything in your cupboard.
We're going to school or having to attend different schools, all right? They just teach us, we only have syllabus on what they've been doing so far in past years, and there's no trend of bringing in new things.
So the next time you complain about not getting a job, think about how well your CV is prepared. Assess your communication skills during the interview and think about how well you presented yourself.
See how your body just dripping diamond.
Whenever there are misunderstandings with both couples, I think it's not easy to settle it when they are from different cultural background. You understand? So, for instance, an Efik guy marrying to an Efik girl, at times when there are issues, they can understand themselves. You understand? Then an Igbo guy now going to marry a Yoruba guy. You know, at times this Yoruba lifestyle that we all know is party things. The guy may not be able to flow with what is happening on in their background. You understand? Likewise to the Igbo guy too. So when it goes with an Igbo guy to an Igbo girl, at times the flow is easy because they understand the concept from the background.
You know, mostly the background we come from. Like maybe you are from the Middle Belt, precisely Benue State or so. You wanted to marry from the Igbo. Most of the family will say, we don't want you to marry from Igbo. Maybe they might not understand your language and you will not understand them. Many will say their marriage, whatever, is high and all those things. It affects a lot. And if you said, okay, to the Yoruba people, they will say, no, culture, this and that we have a higher culture system than their own. When you get married to them, they might be going out different from your own and all those things. So that affects a lot.
Yes, I think it affects mainly, like you said, for the like Idomans or maybe those thieves in Benue State. If you should marry a thief person, they believe the girl or the woman goes out to shit on your wife or something. And for the Igbos, when you go, if you should marry there, then they feel maybe during their, if they want to give them any chieftain title, they will say, okay, no, they will not because she's not from their own side. So I think it's affected, but if you should look at it in a normal reason.
Well, personally, I don't think, but I believe that it's individualistic, as in everybody have different individual differences. So some people might not see it as something, but other people might see it as something. But personally, I think it doesn't really matter.
What really matters is love. So as long as the love exists between the two people we are talking about. So cultural background doesn't have say. So it's love that supersedes.
I don't think cultural background should affect people's relationship. Because in the 21st century, people should be able to love according to your feelings. Being a Yoruba and Igbo does not mean anything. All you needed in a relationship is just the understanding. Once you can be able to study the person very well, and her character aligns with yours, it can start like a dating from dating to courtship from courtship. Then to a serious relationship. And then once you can be able to find out that everything can work well for you, then you can go ahead into the relationship. So this idea of this, I think in this modern time, we should not be talking about cultural background affecting our relationship with people.
Abraham, Moses, Jacob, you are one family.
You are going to know this sport in Nigeria.
See how your body just dripping diamond.
And we are back with The Breakfast and Plus TV Africa. Thank you so much for staying with us and also joining. Glad to announce that we're being joined via Zoom this morning for Off the Press, Ezekiel Nyaitok. Ezekiel, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, then another day to go through the papers this morning. The headlines are quite interesting. I'd like to start off with the leadership. It talks about the 2023 presidential election. Obi Labour Party have no case. INEC tells tribunal, that's a lot to grapple with, says relief sought by petitioners not grantable. President-elect duly elected. Okay, that's like a rhyme. Tinubu APC wants petitions dismissed. These are riders you find underneath the caption this morning. The bold heather, ex-Anambra governor dies at 78. And then again, you find $22 million Calabar Channel dredging. Intel's contracts cost me my job. It feels like a deja vu. We've probably seen this before. And acting PDP national chairman irrelevant. That's what Wike is quoted to say on that particular one. I mean, I think Wike has been blowing very hot. But let's leave this paper this morning and quickly turn our attention to other papers that we have as being made available by our paper vendor. So we turn attention to The Punch. The Punch says, Tinubu won presidential poll. INEC tells tribunal with their full chest. That's the street language. President-elect clinch 1/4 of valid votes cast in 29 states. That's according to the umpire. Losing FCT, IREF hiccups cannot invalidate APC victory. That's what INEC is saying. I feel like this is a lot. And then again, you find House leadership pro G5 reps plot to scuttle PDP's plan. Again, then you find National Assembly proposes jail term for Ponzi scheme promoters. Amcon Baz Arik Air founder from airlines premise. 256 stranded Nigerians rescued from Libya and Chad. Again, you ask, Libya is always, what was it? People who are trying to just escape the hardship and difficulty in Nigeria wants to go to Libya. Exactly what's going on in Libya, really? And then, well, Rhodes v. Vor, Jando asks tribunal to sack Sanwo-Olu. So it's like a two-way thing. Then you have Jando, then on the other hand, you have Vivor asking, sack this and sack that. So ask you to sack me, you also have to sack me. So it's a two-way thing. Police to begin a trial of Three Rivers Kanu corpse. And then just before move away from that, you have mob beats OAU student to death over stolen phone. The issue of jungle justice continue to remain in our society. And we don't seem to forget about what had happened, in Rivers State, the Alu4 situation. Atiku did not meet condition to win, INEC tells tribunal. That's according to the Nation newspaper this morning. The bold caption, commission replies PDP candidates and petition. It says FCT has no special status. Obi's petition should be dismissed. It feels like there's no case. Hey, let everyone just, take a breather. Again, Wike, PDP cannot hijack National Assembly leadership. Nigeria may lose $23 billion to crude oil theft in 2023. Speakers actually won. And just as we move away from this particular paper, Amechi fired me from MPA over contract dispute. APC holds primaries in Imo, Bayelsa, Kogi this weekend. 104 stranded in Nigeria as Nigerians back from Libya. Then that's the much we can take at this point in time. I mean, there are a lot of interesting headlines, but for the want of time, we just quickly have to move away from that. But we take the Daily Trust. It says, leaked audio, federal government ACF orders blast Obi. And then again, Claire Yosef Ohaneze challenges the Labour Party candidate, that's Peter Obi, is employed to divert attention from Obi's petition. Afenifere leader is quoted to say, Arewa elders won Labour candidate against unguarded utterances. Just more interesting headlines. Reps, Finger Mlami, Ahmed orders in $2.4 billion oil revenue scam. IMF urges CBN to continue increasing interest rate. Okay. 10th National Assembly Speaker, why Was is the best choice. So it sounds like an editorial and more of an advertorial there, but we'll just ignore that and just move on. Ezekiel, once again, thank you for being with us this morning.
So much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Well, quickly, let's delve into the papers, right? So, 2023 presidential elections. I mean, we're still grappling with the aftermath of it. The conversation has not ended. You have persons who are aggrieved with the outcome of that elections. And then INEC is here saying that the presidential candidate of the Labour Party does not have a case. That's what they're telling the tribunal. I definitely get to the words where, I mean, how INEC describes, this particular case. But just before we get to that part, what are your thoughts really on this?
The very first thing is that Nigerians need to wake up to the reality of what leadership recruitment is all about. And that if INEC is vested with the responsibility of recruiting a leader for Nigeria, they need to know that it is about the most important assignment that could be vested on anybody. As a matter of fact, the presidency that is seen as the most important office is brought about through INEC. INEC births whoever is going to be the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So to that extent, they really need to understand and appreciate the weight of the responsibility that is vested on them. A lot of times I feel very, very sad when I see what goes on. You've conducted election, you know that you fell short of all your standards. I've been one of the best supports of INEC over the years. I've held INEC in such a way that people sometimes wonder if I was a spokesperson for them. I have a personal relationship with the chairman of INEC, the national chairman. But on this score, on this account, all the things he was doing, the beavers, the sound bites, everything was right, was just good. Look, nothing is going to stop us from transmitting results from the polling unit because we sat down. I was the former national chairman, and we looked at electoral processes. We interrogated where the problems really were. And we said it was, how can we get the votes to count at the polling unit? Because that evil called Coalition Center had become a monster that we needed to get rid of. And we all agreed, unanimous, that we need to have a device that can transmit the results from the polling unit to a central server. We all agreed. Every party chairman, every party, they said, look, let's have a free and fair game. And INEC was in on it. He agreed from the beginning. Now, let's fast forward to the election day, the presidential election, which was the beginning of the end of the anticlimax. You have two elections at the same time. The National Assembly, we have the Senate and the House of Reps, and then the presidency. All are voted at the same time. All are imputed on the same time, same device, but on different channels so that they can go into the different segments. This channel goes through on the same device. This channel goes through on the same device. The House of Reps goes through. The House of the Senate goes through. The presidency fails to go through on the same device, on the same network, at the same time. Something is wrong. That's the beginning. I now come to the status. There are certain things that are not for INEC to talk. What is the status of the FCT and what should be? Let me give you a very simple illustration in WAEC. They say for you to get a university entry, you must get 6 papers and English. Even if you get 10 papers without English, you're not going to get admission because you must get 6 papers and English. You must get English as a precondition. 6 papers and English. If you like, get 10 papers, 12 papers without English, you've not met the condition. Now let INEC allow the court to interpret that. Number 2, Section 35 is so unambiguous. I can quote it anytime, any day because I'm involved. Anyone that knowingly allows himself to be nominated by 2 parties or in 2 constituencies, his nomination shall be void. It's so clear, so unambiguous, and somebody says this person has nomination in 2 constituencies, and you say it doesn't matter. It's not INEC's call. Let the court interpret that. Section 35 of the Electoral Act. Very simple, very straightforward. So for them to come and say Labour Party, they have no case and dismiss everything with a wave of the hand, is for them to minimize the import of what's going on in the system right now. It's not about Labour Party, it's not about Peter Obi. It's about interrogating the process. and some of us are going to sit on it until Nigerians know what the electoral process is, what should be, so that going forward we can have something that we all know what we are doing.
I mean, at the end of the day, because you probably want to say that the case is this conversation is sub judice, especially when we're just waiting to see. Look, just like you're saying, let the courts actually have the interpretation. But one cannot continue to wonder what this would do at the end of the day. I mean, what exactly would happen if this would have an impact, especially when you have INEC saying, praying to the court to dismiss or strike out the petition for being grossly incompetent, abusive, vague, generic, non-specific. I mean, I feel like it's also a reputation, ambiguous, more like using different synonyms just to describe. You're saying the same thing, but you're just using different words to describe what you're trying to say. So one is just wondering if all of this, statement or prayers by the umpire would have no impact on the tribunal and, of course, its outcome.
You see, the place of the tribunal is to interrogate the process and establish compliance, fairness, justice and equity, and of course, the ultimate determination. Somebody says, look, what I am in the tribunal, for instance, and I make a very simple request. When we were counting the votes, we recorded, and I had 75 votes here. On the IREF portal, I have 0. What happened to my vote? I just want to know. So 2 things. Number 1, let us go back to the vote which you had collected and kept, and then look at it again to establish if I'm just having malaria dream or I know what I'm talking about. And you turn around and say that what I'm asking for is vague, is unambiguous, it is untenable. You use all manner of words. You look for dictionary and look for synonyms and just copy all of them. Things don't work that way. Labour Party says, I want to inspect the votes, bring the materials for me to inspect. And they say that is vague. What's vague about that? Like I said, I want to believe that the last hope of this nation right now is the judiciary. I want the Chief Justice of the Federation to just call all the panel members of all the different tribunals and tell them, please, Nigerians have never been this interested. And not just Nigerians, the youths. They are watching you. Don't do what is unethical. Let it be transparent. Whoever wins, wins. Just make sure you are free and fair and firm and stand on the side of justice. Be seen to be free and fair and firm and standing on the side of justice, because you don't want the young people of Nigeria to lose faith in the judicial system. It's going to be the bigger problem for us to handle.
All right, Ezekiel, let's turn our attention to the Punch, away from the leadership now. That's on the Punch. It talks about strong indicators that a crisis in the People's Democratic Party will or may spill over to the 10th National Assembly. And you understand the G5 governors and their activities and how it impacted on the elections, at the national and, of course, at the different components. And then there probably might just also still be a continuation of all of this. What exactly would you say about what's going on, especially that you are a party man and you understand how this, party politics plays?
Okay. When you go to the National Assembly, the law is simple. Let the Speaker, let the President of the Senate come from the majority party. Now it's very clear which the majority party is. It's very clear, very, very unambiguous. So PDP really doesn't have a problem. The people that have a problem is APC, because the law says that they members of the assembly or the Senate will choose their leader by simple majority. What that means is that PDP and the Labour Party, NNPP, ADC can say the leadership of APC wants Mr. say Lawan as the next Senate president. But we, the people, want Mr. say Akpabio as the Senate president. Now, if the others, that's PDP, ADC, NNPP, YPP, Labour, if they can come together and have the numbers, they can actually choose Akpabio instead of Lawan. And that is what should give APC the headache. What I will advise APC to do now is not to grandstand, but to go into a strategic understanding with, say, PDP that has a majority party. But a party like NNPP and Labour, they are very dangerous. You've got to, negotiate with them and discuss with them. So it is now for APC to apply what I call emotional intelligence to know the mindset of these other people and appeal to their sentiment. And they may need to make certain concessions, like they did during the time of Saraki, where they had to bring a person like Ekweremadu from PDP, opposition party, to be the deputy Senate president, because all those things are just numbers. And right now we have the most, the most diverse Senate in the history of the Senate of this country. And for me, I think that things are starting to happen in Nigeria that are going to be irreversible. All the conventionals, all the norms are starting to give way to a kind of different thinking. And the earlier you can adjust to the present realities, the better it will be for you. But if you think, oh, this is how we always do it, this is how it will always be, you wake up to a very sad reality that things don't change.
But, if you talk about being diverse national assembly, is that not a reflection of what, the entire system is, the whole, the country? We're just a reflection of, what it's going on in different component unit.
People are yet to wake up. Let me tell you something. The day you sit down and actually see how an unstructured party gets 6 million votes, and then the conventional party in power gets 8 million, the difference being just about 2 million. Forget all the other things that are being contested as per, is it really the facts and the figures, because let me not enter there for now. When you look at Labour Party that was 6 people tweeting and retweeting in a room, taking the FCT, taking Lagos State, and dragging the Federal Republic of Nigeria with APC government in power, they should wake up to the reality that things don't change, things don't change. And who are the prime drivers of this change? The young people. So I think that we, the old people, need to wake up, and not take these young people for granted again. And then find a way of working with them and ultimately transiting, because it's their turn, it's their time. When my Oga Jagaban keeps talking Emilokon, what do you really want the youth to say? Whose turn is it really? Yours or theirs? Government is for everybody, but we've got to know that right now they are the principal officers. We are just the supporting act. And the earlier we do it such that we give them their space and guide them properly and let them know that they are being introduced gradually into the system so that they can mature into what it is. Politics is not about hothead. It's about very settled, mature approach to things, which is the governance. So we need to bring them in a way they can come in, gradually learning, understanding. A lot of them are really ready for this, but some of them are not. It's hot heads. Do you understand me? So we need to bring them in, in a way that we are fair to them. When that is done, there's going to be a good system transition without system shock. But when we do not appreciate the place of the youth and their right to be where we are today, then one day they will rise up and they will take it. How they will do it, I don't know. But I pray that we just let it be a peaceful transition.
But away from all of that, let's delve into the economy. And that's on the Daily Trust newspaper as we coast this review down. It talks about the International Monetary Fund, that's the IMF, urging the Central Bank of Nigeria to continue to tighten the monetary policy rates, just in ruin of inflation, right? So continue to increase the interest rate. Do you think that that's actually good for our economy?
You see, I'm not an economist.
I know.
But I've been a private sector player all my life. I've never accepted any appointment. So there are things that you really need to look at. There are two things. First is that government is not a business, it's not an enterprise. Government has a specific objective. It's just like when you have a body like Red Cross. They have a specific objective to help. If you go to government, you look at chapter 2, section 14, subsection 2B. It gives you what is the marching order of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It says the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. To that extent, government sits down to take decisions that will make sure that the generality of the people are not disenfranchised, or they are not put at harm's way, or they are not in any way, unprotected. Within that context, you now come into our system. You can either drive a capitalist system where you make sure the rich always have more than enough so that whatever falls down can benefit the poor. We are now like receiving from that's capitalism. Or you go to extreme socialist tendency where you think of the poor without being able to build a system. But what is happening in the world today is being able to do what you call cut and fill. What I've brought up as social governance, which is a bottom-to-top approach to governance and development with the primary objective of bringing the people out of poverty. When you do that, you realize that when the interest rate is too high, they cannot borrow. If they cannot borrow, there will be no production, because production works a lot on being able to get facilities from the bank. By the time that your returns on investment does not match the amount of money or the interest that you are paying, then you discover that you are working for the bank. And sooner or later, you're going to give up and say it's not worth it. But when you can get interest factors at a lower rate, it becomes easier for the producer to go and borrow and do business, and economy runs on the production platform, which is what Mr. Peter Obi has been saying. Let us move from consumption to production. You can't go into production when you do not have the funds. You can't have the funds when the interest rate is too high. So we need to now put on the thinking cap and say, how can we segment the society such that you do not disenfranchise the lower people? IMF should know that Nigeria is not America. America and Europe and all those people, they have systems and structures already in place. For you to borrow money in America, it's not the same terms and template that you borrow in Nigeria, because some have a borrowing culture where they will borrow and return. We really don't have a work culture. We really don't have a borrowing culture. For you to borrow is easy, but for you to return the money is more difficult. So we need to come to a point where you balance between the two. You need extremely creative minds to be in government and in governance to be able to know IMF, yes, you say this way, but for now, we can't go that way. Let's rather go this way. There are always many roads that lead to the market, not just one road.
Thank you.
That road has to be the one that your people can access easily.
Well, definitely, that's a great analogy right there from you. Thank you so much. This is a point where we have to take a break, because we will continue with other lineup of our conversation this morning on the show. Ezekiel Nyaitok, many thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thanks so much. God bless you.
All right, then. Have a great day. That's the size of it this morning on Off the Press. We take a breather. When we return, we'll delve straight to our first conversation. Now, the elections have come and they have gone. But of course, the petitions continues. Stay with us.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408 or send an email to marketing@plustvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
When you said superiority of degrees where you are over Nigeria, you are benefiting from a country that you are not originally from. Your ancestors are not from there. They allowed you to be in their space, to contribute to their leadership, growth, governance. And then you come to your country, you are destroying your own country, playing the tribal card.
You are not at home. Why do you do this? Because you're not going to vote, you don't have the PVC, and you're actually fanning the flames of this disunity. Of what benefit is that to us?
Politicians are not to blame. Politicians, I've been one, so I understand. Politicians only trigger what already exists.
What's in the society?
If there is no tribal sentiment, no politician will come out and say, you've not played. Nigerians always, no matter how little or no matter how big, want to call people they, so that they can call some people us. Till today, 2007, INEC does not have the result for 2007, and you can check this out.
Abraham, Moses, Jacob, you are one family.
There's no dream of this sport in Nigeria.
See how your body just dripping diamond.
I don't have one yet because I'm here to be rich. So when I'm rich now, I will have one. But like this, I can just go. I do freestyle, go to wherever I like. But for now, I don't have any favorite. Now my own mind, I tell you, I know the life for you. It's not like we're on TV. I'm trying to form. I'm just studying my mind. So I don't have any favorite destination for now.
In Nigeria, there are a couple of places in Abuja, a couple of amusement parks in Abuja. I usually, Wonderland, a couple of nice spots.
Since I stay in Lagos, so my first destination is like Landmark Beach. This is one of the most favorite of mine. And then this landmark destinations, landmark park. I mean, it's pretty good. It's unique, you know. It's well designed, and I think it's quite well known in international for international occasions. And I think many people will know it later on. Yes.
Landmark is cool. I like Landmark. Everybody loves the sun, like beach sun and everything. The surroundings is very alright.
And the girls?
No, I don't know about the girls. I'm not a girls guy.
So what do you like, guys?
No, I like girls, but I'm not like, I don't do everybody that way.
Yeah, Lekki Conventional Center.
It's chill now. I like their overhead rope shit. Yeah, that's why. It's why it's cool.
Obodo Katura.
And why is that?
I've seen pictures and I've heard a lot about it. I think I'll go all through the cable car,
where I like Whispering Palms at Badagry. I like the place. It's serene. They have cool things. I like the place.
So far, I would say the landmark has been pretty good. We just got some cabanas, so my whole
family. There's no dream of this sport in Nigeria.
See how your body just dripping diamond.
Ẹgbẹ́ ilé tí mo ṣe mechanic wà ńbẹ̀ bó ṣe máa ń tú bó ṣe máa ń ṣe mo ohun mi mo ṣe decide pé okay nǹkan tí man ń ṣe yìí màá try láti máa ṣe mo explain for ọ̀gá mi pé this is what I want to do pé ẹ jọ̀ọ́ ẹ máa fún mi láyè pé tó bá ti di ìrọ̀lẹ́ màá lọ sí school Federal College fún theory for theoretical aspect so màá lè máa ṣe practical níta ọ̀gá mi dẹ̀ allow mi so tí n bá ti kó níbi iṣẹ́ ní nǹkan bíi 4 so màá lọ sí school so àǹfààní yẹn mo rí pé ó really help mi gan pé àti bí mo ṣe máa approach customer nsìn ó máa yàtọ̀ sí bí mo ṣe wà lọ́dọ̀ ọ̀gá mi báwọn ọ̀gá mi ṣe approach customer bí mo ṣe máa approach wọn sìn there is a difference and the way mo ṣe máa handle iṣẹ́ ìyàtọ̀ wà ńbẹ̀ náà fún àwọn tó máa sọ pé tíyẹn bá ti kàwé pé kò lè dèèyàn tíyẹn bá ti kàwé yẹn kì í ṣe excuse pé èèyàn ò lè make ẹ̀ ẹni tí ó kàwé yẹn ó kù sí ohun gangan fúnra ẹ̀ lọ́wọ́ láti make up mind ẹ̀ tíyẹn bá ti kàwé sí ìyẹn pé kò lè jẹ́ èèyàn kò lè ṣe nǹkan no it's not like that.
I see this work as my ladder of progress. I see it as something that if I am serious about it, I'm going to make it in life. I am very proud of this work because it's a work of an idea. It's an idea work. It's a work that you can boast of maybe when you fix a car and it works fine. You are good to go. I see it as a very fantastic job. In the nearest future, I want to be a very great man and how to mingle with people. I like music, I want to be a musician, but at least I need something like handwork to help me, and at the same time I want to have my own mechanical company that I will be in charge, and that's all. My very advice for those that are not in school, go and sit down and think of the kind of vocational work that you can learn that you will gain from. So they have to sit down, think of what to do. If you can't learn handwork, go for something creative, create something and sell out, do business and make money. Before you know, you make it in life. Instead of roaming around with friends or wasting your time.
We're back on The Breakfast with Plus TV Africa right here, and we dive straight to our first conversation. Now, dissatisfied with the conduct of the 2023 general elections, no fewer than 10 of the 18 political parties have filed 431 petitions at the various election tribunals in 37 or 27 states of the country to quash the victories of those the Independent National Electoral Commission declared winners. There are 5 petitions against the declaration of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress, APC, as president-elect. This brings the tentative figure of petitions to 436. The figure will be more if those from the remaining 9 states tally. Now, those seeking the nullification of Tinubu's victory are Alhaji Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party, that's the PDP, Peter Obi of the Labour Party, candidate of the Action Alliance, that's the AA, Movement, Allied People's Movement, that's the APM, and Action People's Party, the APP. There are also petitions across states against the outcome of some governorship, state, House of Assembly, and House of Representatives elections. Now, apart from the 5 parties kicking against the result of the presidential elections, other parties at the tribunals include the APC, the Social Democratic Party, that's the SDP, the New Nigerian People's Party, the NNPP, the All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA, and Young Progressive Party, that's the YPP. The number of petitions may increase further after April the 15th, when you have supplementary polls for 2 governorship and 5 senatorial, 31 House of Representatives, 57 State Assembly slots. Now, Lagos State is not excluded, as the People's Democratic Party's candidate has submitted a petition before the governorship, looking at the election governorship tribunal of Lagos State, challenging the outcome of the governorship elections right there. We're talking about Abdullah Aziz Adejiran, that's Jando, the People's Democratic governorship candidate, who said that he's calling for the disqualification of the All Progressive Congress president-elect or governor-elect, and the Labour Party as well, candidate in the election for non-compliance with the Electoral Act of 2022, as well as the guidelines of the Independent National Electoral Commission. To make sense of all of this morning, we have a legal practitioner who joins us live in the studios this morning, Sir Leonard Ayongo. Leonard, it's good to have you join us.
Yes. Good morning, viewers. Mercy, it's good to be in your studio for the first time. It's been Zoom and all that, so I'm happy to be in this cozy environment.
Definitely. I mean, we're also happy to have you here. But let's get into it. The elections have actually ended. The presidential elections, the governorship, state assembly, what have you. The entire elections for 2023 has actually ended. But then again, it doesn't look like we have peace. So a lot of petitions upon petitions, and maybe we'll anticipate more petitions. I'd like you to share your thoughts on that. How does that even make you feel? What do you think about it?
Well, maybe I could just add that the elections are not actually concluded yet. You know, the supplementary elections on the 15th of this month, tomorrow, or this weekend, 15th, the one in Adamawa and Kebbi for the governorship. That goes to show that, do we really have a concluded election in Nigeria? It's a rhetorical question. Because if something is concluded, ideally means that it is done and everybody should go home and take it. But I'm so sorry to say that most of these petitions that you see in either at the governorship tribunal or the presidential tribunal, maybe it's as a result of the credibility of the elections itself. The numbers, just like you read, that is staggering and it's still counting. It shows that almost everybody that participated in that in this last election is going to court. I mean, the losers especially. So, what is the credibility landmark of that election? Is what we could question. Why not necessarily being legalistic this morning? I think it's one aspect that we have to. As the election that was conducted, as this complies substantially with the Electoral Act. That's a very big question. So, but the general mood of the country can tell you otherwise, because the expectation was that, okay, this is going to be a technology-based election. Unlike the previous election, we're made to understand that, okay, the beavers, of course, there will be electronic transmission of results and all that. Substantially, that wasn't complied with from the plethora of petitions we have. But I think the credibility of this last general election is the one that is being questioned. But also remember that with the greatest respect now, the judiciary or the courtroom has become part of the electionary process. Of course, it's provided for in the Electoral Act and the Constitution that if election is conducted and you have participated and you are not satisfied, you can go to the tribunals. So, but we felt that this time around we're going to see less of those cases. But unfortunately, we have those plethora of cases before the court to decide.
So, before we get to, some of the issues, I mean, I'm not sure that we would have time to delve into all of the petitions that, that has been put out in front of the courts, however it is. But just before we get into that, why are we still grappling with this sort of democracy where we probably have to end at the court or, go to the tribunal? What exactly is wrong with the system?
Well, I have said severally in different fora that laws without the implementation, without implementing the sanctioning aspect of the law is nothing but mere musical instrument. What do I mean? When you have laws and people violate laws and there's no punishment for it, I mean, the temerity continues, the impudence continues. Now, we have laws in this country. We have the Electoral Act, we have the Constitution. These are the principal legislation governing elections in Nigeria and other guidelines of INEC and all that. And when people don't, or even the electoral body don't comply with it, I've always said that there should be sanctions. Once there is no sanction for these aberrations, we will continue to have what we are having now. That is one aspect. But the second aspect is this, that each election cycle was supposed to have improvement based on the previous experiences. So there was so much expectation for the 2023 general elections that is going to be, it was supposed to be technologically driven. For the first time, the Electoral Act captured the electronic transmission of results. But I'm not delving into this technical area, this legal area, because these matters are in court. We want to see how the court will come out with the final decision on electronic transmission of results and all that. That's why I don't want to preempt the court. I'm being very careful on that aspect. So, but you see, people feel that going to court is part of the election, which shouldn't be the case. Because if you see what happened in Kenya presidential election, within 2 weeks of the presidential election, there was verdict by the Kenyan Supreme Court. But in our own case, it will drag and drag, despite the enormous work that has been done. You see that these processes are not really, we don't really observe time, especially post-election matters. Not pre-election here, there's time frame. But even the post-election that you now have 180 days to determine this election matter, to me, I think it's rather too long. Because I'm of the opinion, with some other pundits, that this matters, going forward, we should find a way and see how it can be concluded before swearing in of any elected person that is being challenged. But you see, somebody is in court, somebody is coming out to defend the mandate and all that, and then another person takes it. That's why you have staggered elections in Anambra and other area where, you know that those governorship elections are different now. One is holding different date and all that because of court decisions. So as going forward as Nigerians, we should look at areas that we can improve on. And one of those areas, cardinal point, is that I think that election matters should be concluded before swearing in. That's my personal opinion.
So are we going to, are you proposing that there should be some sort of, legal provision to that? Because there's
yes, of course. Just like I said, elections is a process. Electioneering is a process. Even the election itself will keep evolving. The society evolve. Of course, you now know that the primaries are held almost 6 months to the general election. That's why you have most of these pre-election matters are now concluded. But we can go further by legislation, of course, that election matters should be concluded before swearing in. Because the expectation and the mood of the country is like, okay, if a particular candidate or that has been declared winner is challenged and the person is sworn into office, I mean, he already has an advantage, whether we like it or not. So these are areas that we can keep improving. But then, the credibility of election, and just like I said, if somebody has violated the provisions of the law in the conduct of the election, there should be punishment for such. The difference between us and other climes is that we do not punish offenders in the country. We do not. You know, in other climes, people commit offense, and they are punished. If you cannot do the time down, don't do the crime. But here, there's so much impunity, and that is the difference. And going forward, I think we should look at how to punish people that commit this aberration. That's why people have been calling for tribunal to try election offenders. You see, where there was voter suppression, people were prevented physically from participating in elections across the country. So we should have punishment for such behavior.
So as we continue with this conversation now, because we can't begin to, preempt the court, and the judgment of the court would just allow the court to do her, her duty, however. But is it ever possible that we get to a point in our country where we would have elections conducted and then results have been declared without having people approaching the election tribunal going to court? Are we ever going to get to that point? Yeah, is it possible to attain it? And what exactly is responsible for, this behavior where we thought that in 2023 we'd have less of court cases, but that's not the case. We're having more petitions. We're anticipating more petitions with the, supplementary elections that will be conducted. So again, I ask you, do you think we'll ever get to that point? And what is responsible for this particular behavior and pattern?
Well, there's no perfect election anywhere in the world, even in the US that we try to emulate. But there's normally substantial compliance with the law, and of course, offenders are punished. Okay, you can see even the indictment of the former president, Donald Trump, because he was supporting people to act against the state. Now, what we have in this country, I keep saying, do we have deterrence? Do we have people that, of course, even the umpire itself, INEC, some of their staff, whether ad hoc or permanent staff, those that have been found to be culpable, have they been tried? Of course, we have very few convictions in Akwa Ibom, where Guinea was the resident electoral commissioner, where a professor was convicted. That is commendable. But from there, how much have we proceeded from there? How far have we gone? So where there's no punishment for these acts, we will continue to have this kind of aberration. That means, of course, you hear this adage, which I go to court. If you are not satisfied, go to court. And it's very embarrassing to some of us that have been in practice. By God's grace, I've done 18 years as a legal practitioner. And I've sat in global audience where different jurisdictions, legal jurisdiction in the world has been compared. Have been compared. Especially in Africa, there's so much impunity. And people should be afraid of the court. People should not say, okay, you have committed, if you think the election is okay, go to court. The court is there as the last arbiter. So
why is there so much impunity is the question?
Because we don't have punishment, we don't have the will to punish offenders. How can you, when the law has stated clearly that there should be electronic transmission and you fail, or somebody prevented, if it is found, of course, these allegations, allegation has to be proven in court. So where those aberrations occur, where those crime, of course, it's crime against the state for you to alter election result. So the criminal aspect of that, you have to pursue it. We have to come out with some legislation where we can punish offenders, electoral offenders. Because to me, it is even more treasonable for you to alter the mandate of the people. And then, of course, you now say, go to court. I mean, that adage is sad. Because you now say, okay, I can do anything I want to do, and go to court. That's why people have said, look, INEC should have the power. Of course, there's a review session. We expected that INEC was going to review some of those decisions because there were protests either at the final collation. So that's why INEC has the power by the Electoral Act to review some of these by 7. They have 7 days notice, 7 days period to review, and they never did. We expected INEC to come and claim, okay, these are your petitions, these are your observations, this is our stand on it. You know, but when you ask, okay, oh, you go to court, I mean, it's very dangerous. I must tell you, even as a practitioner, that sometimes people don't even have faith in the system. And I can tell you that the judiciary is not the problem of Nigeria, because we are our own problems. It's people that go to the court. It's people that go to court, not the court inviting people. So if you have a system that is transparent, if you have a system that people have faith, I mean, we'll have less of those court cases. And I keep saying that, even as a practitioner, that it's better matters are settled out of court, amicably. Because if you go to court, there are 2 decisions. There's not like drug game. There are 2 decisions. It's either you win or you lose. And the losers will still have a very bitter memories of any judgment, whether you like it or not, or one way or the other. So if you get the items right, you get the election right, a bit more transparent, because we can't have a perfect election. There's a substantial compliance. You know that this person has clearly won, although there are few aberrations. Then it will go. But where there is so much impunity, people are prevented fiscally from voting, I mean, you cannot have peace. And once the legitimacy of any election is questioned, I want to take it very carefully. Once a legitimacy of any election is questioned, there's bound to be anarchy, even when the person is subsequently sworn in. So we have to be very careful. Legitimacy of election is something that is very key. Otherwise, it will no longer be democracy. Of course, you know there are other forms of government. So democracy is the legitimacy. The majority decision has to be upheld, and that is just democracy. It's not normally the best, but majority decision has to be upheld, and that is the legitimacy of democracy.
I mean, just before we come to Lagos, we'll probably just touch that because, of course,
I'm here in Lagos, so I will talk Lagos.
So, but I'd like you also to share your thoughts on INEC's prayers. We probably would just have to be very careful with that. INEC has, said the prayers. They are defending Tinubu's election as president and asking the tribunal to dismiss Peter Obi's, petition, saying that it is vague, it is unethical. I mean, there are a lot of synonyms that have been used to describe that.
Let me quickly cut it short. I did a matter up to the Supreme Court just last month, and the position of the law is simple. It's straightforward that INEC shouldn't take position. INEC should be neutral. It should bring just the fact before the court so that the court will take decision. And it's not the INEC's place to come and say Party A is correct or Party B is correct. That's not INEC position. That has been decided by a series of decisions in court. So, of course, INEC normally is a nominal party in election-related matters. So it's not INEC's place to come and say disqualify this person is not correct and all that thing. In the first place, if INEC had done what they ought to do, very few persons will go to court. So the contest basically between the petitioner and the respondent, especially the man who has lost the election, who is the petitioner, and the respondent, the winner, So INEC, to me, of course, to the law, is merely a nominal party. They will look at the fact presented by the petitioner and they respond. So, but I think going forward, INEC can do further than that, to me, by just being a mere nominal party, by doing what they ought to do. The question is that where INEC, where it is established that they deliberately fail to do what the law asks them to do, are we not supposed to punish such acts? Because to me, it's an insubordination to the law.
So who is going to punish them now?
That is why we need to have the political will. We need to have the political will. And that is why people have advocated that the office of the Attorney General, either at the state or at the federal, should be different from the Commissioner for Justice. The Attorney General is normally is different from the political
class,
or so to say. Yes, of course, because it's more professional. Of course, they have it in other climb. It's less. It can be influenced. I can be appointed a Commissioner for Justice, and if my appointer thinks one way, it's bad that I'm going to think that way too. But if the office of the Attorney General is separated from that of the Commissioner for Justice or the Attorney General for or the Minister of Justice, so these are some of the things we'll keep advocating. that as we go into the next election in 2027, we should have learned from what has happened and get it right or better in the next elections.
But we would have, second guest joining the conversation now as we look at, the massacre that has happened in Benue State and the fact that there's a need to call for a state of emergency. But just before we introduce our next guest this morning on the show, I'd like you to also speak to the fact that there's also a petition by one of the candidates of the governorship elections right here in Lagos, who has actually approached the election tribunal right here in Lagos and is asking for him to be declared as, the governor or the winner of the elections. However, you look at it on several grounds that those who contested the election, especially the president, the governor incumbent, did not meet up to electoral requirements, more like a breach of the electoral requirement prior to the elections, party issues, and what have you.
Nominations.
Yeah, nominations. What do you speak to this?
Well, I think, I know that both the PDP and the Labour Party candidates in Lagos State have gone to court, each of them claiming victories. Of course, that's why, I do not envy the judges most time. Because when you have a situation where two conflicting persons are in court, to take a decision is always very difficult. But now, principally, what do we look at in election matters? One, that you were not properly nominated, which has to do with qualification, or you have been convicted of a crime and all that, so you are not qualified to have participated in the election. And secondly, that there have not been substantial compliance with the Electoral Act in the conduct of that election. But in Lagos is very intriguing. You remember in the presidential election, Labour Party actually won. And from that perspective, from the outside world, we believe that, okay, maybe there will be an upset. But of course, each election is local. Each politics is local. So when it came to the governorship election, there was different results. So, Lagos is a mini Nigeria. To me, this is where it is all, my friends would not say, if you're not in Lagos, you're not in Nigeria. And I laugh over that too. So people are very lucky. That's why I'm being very careful, because these matters are in court. We'll look at how the court will look at this issue. But for me, I think we should remain very peaceful, remain very civil in our approach and see the outcome of this court. But of course, I will enjoy that. The judiciary should live up to expectations of Nigerians.
All right, then we'll just delve a little bit from all of that and just take a quick look at security, especially the fact that it's very important for our development as a country. And of course, it's important. Without security, you and I can't be here, talking anything. So we have Austin Edgar, who's a security expert, who joins us this morning in Ibadan via Zoom. Austin, it's good to have you join us.
Good morning.
Yes, please. But you remember that we've had this conversation as to the recent killings in Benue State insecurity, which is worrisome. And recently you have tribal leaders who are asking President Muhammadu Buhari to declare a state of emergency, not just in Benue State, but the entire country over insecurity. But just before we get to that part of it, I'd like to ask you as an expert, what exactly do you think we're dealing with in Benue State? What security situation do you think is herders farmers clash? Do you think it's, a terrorist incident, tribal conflict? What exactly do you think we're dealing with here?
I think it's an internal conflict. From my perspective, it's an internal conflict. Because over time, the killings is coming from one particular region, and that is the southern district of Benue State. If you look at it, from the northern axis, where they have the sitting governor, we don't have much crisis there. And also where the governor-elect, that is the eastern side, we don't have problems, but we have this problem right at the southern region. And remember, the southern region is where we have the former Senate President, David Mark. And they've had a lot of they always have a political crisis in that state. I've been privileged to speak with a few people, and I think it's more of an ethnic thing within them. But it's not out of place that when people want to hide their activities, they can call it herdsmen or bring in some machinery to create those havoc. and so that they don't link it to them, it's not out of place to think in that manner. But whatever it is, I see it as a political crisis.
Okay, but we have Leonard here in the studio. Leonard, I know that you live or your community is very close to Benue, and I'm sure that you have an idea of what's going on. So, what do you think that we're dealing with now? The insecurity issue in Benue State might be.
Well, look, I hail from Alifokpa in Yache, Yala local government, and incidentally, we have boundary with where this crisis, where these killings have been ongoing. You know, we have boundary with them. Remember, we have what we call the Lolugal boundary in Alifokpa that actually separated the southern protectorate from the northern protectorate. It's a landmark boundary for security reasons too. I think maybe that's what is still helping us, because we would have been faced with this attack. But I'm sorry, I may want to disagree with my brother over there that says it's more political. I don't think so. I don't think it's more of an internal squabble, because these killings have a pattern. I don't think it is ethnic based in Benue State. You know, the governor of Benue State, Thomas, stated severally that herdsmen have been attacking his state. So I don't think it's political. To me, well, it maybe have other reasons to say, but I think it's more of external aggression. And the question is that, have there been any punishment? We say we are governed by the Constitution. We are governed by laws in this country. This aberration, these killings, there have not been any kind of arrest, any kind of prosecution in the country. People just do all sorts of immunity, kill people, and it's a continuous process. Okay, look at the massacre, Easter, where people were celebrating. Easter, public holidays. And then, of course, you know, they have a new governor-elect in the presence of Reverend Father Hyacinth, a clergyman. So who thought that, okay, what is political about that? That is my query. Maybe I'll succumb to superior argument. So, but the question is that there have not been any kind of deterrence whatsoever. And when you don't have those deterrents, like just I keep saying, crime happens all over the world. You know, in 2019, I got elected as a member of the Chatham House, and what we basically discuss is that, look, why do we have crimes in Africa that is more pronounced than other parts of the world? Here, there is no punishment, there's no deterrence. People just do whatever they do, and they go out.
But what if, if you look at it, because our case is very peculiar. For instance, you want to look at the entire, you find out that the police is responsible for protecting, you know,
the police and other security agencies.
Okay, the police, but we're saying, because, I mean, our issue is peculiar. Over 200+ million persons. What's the number of personnel that we have?
Of course, you know, over time we have also inadequate, I must tell you.
Yes. So you also need to agree. You also need to look at, you know, some issues that are peculiar to this. I mean, there's been several arguments that we need to restructure the security architecture so that you have states controlling the architecture. They can recruit as much as they want, so they are able to cater for them. But that's on the one hand, because if you look at it, you probably might want to say that maybe, just maybe, the security architecture in the states are not able to contain, you know, all of this.
Of course, not at all. If you look at section 214 of the, I've been trying to avoid law, but I have to. If you look at section 214 of the Constitution, it talks about the control command of the police force. So the governors who are the chief security officers have no control. For instance, if a governor of a state is not in good time with the commissioner of police, I'm telling you that if he gives the order to the commissioner of police, he or she will not take it. He will wait for the IG's directive. And that's why I said, look, policing has to be decentralized. We should have state policing. And so we should have a kind of vigilante system where, especially in Benue State, where they can respond quickly.
No, so we still have Austin Edgar here now. Austin, if I'm sure that you would agree with me that we need to understand, you know, the problem, root cause analysis or whatever it is that's causing this insecurity, and if we're able to understand it, then it will be easy for us to address it. But you two have seemed to have different opinion. You say that it's political, and he thinks that it's not political. But however, let's also get to another part of the conversation. We're stakeholders in this community, and a lot of persons are asking that we should declare a state of emergency. The president should go ahead and declare state of emergency because it's unbecoming Do you think that we have gotten to that point, and especially in Benue State and, you know, in Nigeria as a whole, that a state of emergency should be declared?
I will be very particular with Benue State, and the legal man there did not agree. I don't expect him to agree with my own argument, because we have a pattern of analyzing crime. And from the perspective at which I've analyzed this crime, the crime is coming from one particular geo area of the states. If this crisis is spread across the north, the east, and the southern districts of Benue State, then we agree that it's something else. But whereby one particular aspect of the kingdom in Benue State is being affected, and then we begin to see things different. And that's why the community there, they are crying for a state of emergency, meaning that at this point, I think from their own, they have lost confidence even in their own governor. And these are, you know, these things, where the way it happened, they have more information than all of us. And I think it is the right thing to do, because this is a massacre. It's something that they are taking, they're still pounding on one side of the community, one aspect is one geozone. That's so if you're analyzing a crime and you say that, okay, it's a general thing in the whole Benue State, then we expect that we should have some kind of attack in the east, in the north, and then in the south. But now it's concentrated in the south. So when something is concentrated in one aspect, then we know that there is something there. So I think I agree with the leaders.
Okay, so Nick Agule is here. Nick Agule is an indigene of Benue State. He joins us this morning from the United Kingdom. Let's even share your thought. Nick, how do you feel about, you know, the recent killing in Benue State, all of the attacks? And do you also agree that a state of emergency should be declared? Do you have an idea of what exactly might just be going on in terms of insecurity? Do you think it's, you know, herders farmers clash? What exactly, communal conflict? What exactly do you think is going on in your state? Nick Agule, can you please unmute your device? We're running out of time.
Okay, yes. Yes, thank you very much, Mercy, for admitting me into the program. I feel very sad as an indigene of Benue State. And even if I were not an indigene of Benue State, I will still feel very sad for the wanton killing of human life, taking of human life by these bandits. Human life is sacred, and it should not be taken in the way that we are seeing in Benue State. And as to whether this is being perpetrated by herdsmen or the locals or anything, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter at all. The Nigerian government is there with the primary responsibility to provide security of lives and property to Nigerians. And whoever is taking arms against Nigerians, the Nigerian government should face the person. Like I was making, I made a speech a few days ago. I said in the United States, if you take a gun against American citizens, the American government also faces you with a gun. They don't care from where you're coming from. They don't want to know if you are white, black, you are an immigrant, or you are born. They face you with a gun. It's after they fix an appointment with God for you that they go back and start checking who this person is. They will go to your house. I mean, we had a case just, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? An employee in a bank, he entered the bank and started shooting at his colleagues in the bank, killing about 4 of them. Within minutes, the security were inside that bank and they took him out. It is after they took him out that they now went to his house to go and investigate and say, what could be the motive? What's happening here? Does he have collaborators and all of that? But we're not seeing that happening in Nigeria. These killings will happen. The perpetrators will be allowed to go scot-free. And then we're here analyzing. Are they Fulani herdsmen? Are they locals? Did they come from Mali? Did they come from Niger? That is failure on the side of government. Whoever takes arms, whoever he is, whether he is local, he's a vigilante, he's a Fulani herdsman, he's APC member, PDP member, whoever, face that person with a gun and protect Nigerians. And now, to your question about whether a state of emergency should be declared, there's no need for a state of emergency. State of emergency to do what? We have the entire security architecture of Nigeria. We have a chief of defense staff with service chiefs. We have an inspector general of police. Then we have the intelligence agencies like the DIA, the NIA, the DSS. Them just do their work. What is a state of emergency? What is a state of emergency going to add to this situation? Do you understand? The question should be, why is it that people can come, kill Nigerians at random, and they are allowed to go? Why are they allowed to go? That is the question, Mercy, that needs to be asked of the security agencies and their commander-in-chief, President Buhari.
Okay, so I mean, but now the people, this is actually not even. It's a lot to grapple with when you talk about 400 people dying in 3 weeks, according to reports. I mean, these are reported cases, so you don't even want to delve into unreported cases. And this is just for a state, because we have also witnessed and seen that shortly after the election, there seemed to be an uprise in insecurity in different parts of the country. And that's nothing to write. Every other time you have people losing their life, it's nothing. But gentlemen, as we course this down, because we're out of time, I'll just allocate 1 minute to each of you to just answer. What exactly is the way forward? Do we need to improve? Is it that we're overwhelmed? Is it that we lack political will? Where exactly is the challenge and what is the solution? So I start with you, Nika Gule.
The solution for me is as simple as it is. We copied our democracy from America. We also have aspiration to join the top 20 industrialized nations. So the only thing we also need to be doing is to do the things that those people are doing to be great, to become industrialized, to become developed. You cannot be saying, I want to catch up with someone in a race, and the person is driving in a Ferrari, and you are going by bicycle. Can you catch up with him? You know, so in the United States, as I gave the example, anybody that takes arms against American citizens faces firepower from the American government. Simple. It doesn't matter who the person is. Nobody debates about who this person is. Is he white, black? Is he Latino? Is he an immigrant? Is it a member of the Democratic Party or Republican? No. Once you take arms against American citizens, you should be faced with firepower.
Okay.
And that is what needs to happen in Nigeria.
Okay.
And once you do that, it acts as a deterrent to everybody, that if I take arms against Nigerians, I will not come out alive. That will be the solution.
Austin, what are your thoughts on this?
They should not play politics with security, because it has to do with human lives. You can't recover it. There's nothing as expensive as that. Politics should be set aside from security matters. So and they should reinforce security.
So you think that that's the case right now for us in Nigeria, especially?
That's the case.
Oh, okay.
That's the case. They are playing politics. They are playing politics with security, with human lives, and that's what is happening in Benue State.
Okay, so interesting to note how that's panning out. But you're here now, and we'll just end this with you. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think we are on the same page, all of us now, that there should be punishment for offenses, for offenders. We should implement the sanctioning aspect of the law. And we should, I'll take it further apart from the punishment, we should have good governance. Look, if we get the local government system right, because whether we like it or not, there's a failed local government system in Nigeria. I've had to deliver a lot of lectures on this at different fora. If the local government system works, and of course works with the locals, and then the state, and then we have the state policing. Those are solutions to it. No, we don't. So, for instance, Governor Tom does not need to always be crying to Abuja for security men. So these are basically what we need to do: punish offenders, have the local government system work, and have state policing.
Well, Leonard, we will talk about this local government system, especially when we just, looked at the dispensation of constitutional review, and the governors or the House of Assembly members not even okaying financial autonomy for local government. That's a conversation for another day. We have to go. We've had fine gentlemen one in the studio, and of course we've had those who've joined via Zoom this morning. Nika Gule joined us all the way from the United Kingdom, and then we also have Austin Ega, who's a security expert, who joined us this morning from Ibadan. And in the studio, Leonard Ayango, who is a member of the Chatham House, a legal practitioner, who joined us this morning on the show. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being part of the breakfast.
Much.
All right then.
Thank you.
Well, that's the size of it. I hope we have had a great time. You and I have had a great time. We appreciate that you have been part of the show this morning, 7 o'clock up until this moment. That's the size of it. We will take a break. So we join the newsroom at 9 o'clock for the news brief. Now, if you missed out on any part of the conversation, I'd ask that you join us on any of our social media platforms as you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa, Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. Also on Facebook and Twitter as Plus TV Africa, and of course, Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. My name is Messi Boko. Have a great morning.
You may want to ask why murals are important. It is no secret that murals make neighborhoods beautiful. They add color to building walls and streets which would otherwise go unnoticed. They are a treat for locals and tourists alike. Murals have been part of Nigeria's cultural landscape for thousands of years. The term mural became popular with the Mexican muralism art movement. The transformation which took place in the history of mural art during the 1920s and 1930s was highly influenced by the government's sponsorship in Mexico. The Mexican President Alvaro Obregón began a nationalist cultural program in the 1920s. As part of this program, the Mexican Ministry of Education and other government entities to create public murals. In Lagos, the visual effects of wall paintings are an excitement to attract public attention to social issues like the ones here under the Falomo Bridge. An artist, Poli Alakija, created these murals on the columns in homage to the Bring Back Our Girls, the 276 schoolgirls who were abducted on April 14, 2014 by Boko Haram. We speak to an artist, Ebenezer Omole, a 34-year-old who started off as a child and has been painting for many years. This is one of the locations where he has some of his works. He explains the processes involved.
There's a way I blow this color. When you look close to it, you see as if it's flowing down, So I have to follow the flowing down, then blow it both left and right. So in order to make it creative, so that it won't just go down straight, but go left, right, and zigzag like that. I mix another black thicker than this, then to write what they have here. Especially like this is, we have food here, then we have swimming pool here, then we have games, then we have drinks here, then we have pools, music. So I just did an artwork that will speak for this place because this is a restaurant. So I did those backgrounds so to speak. So anybody coming inside, looking at this place alone, so they will know what is going on around there.
He speaks on the distinguished effects imbibed in artistic painting than ordinary ones on the wall.
Ordinary painting is just maybe changing the wall to a particular color that you like. Mural is very interesting, and I used to say it. No painting is complete without an artwork like this. So for your painting to come out well, so you need to add some artistic to it so that to make it more, because a lot of people in the world, they cherish artwork. Now, for example, now, this is lion. A lion represents a king, and the writing here, so it's all about this place, because this restaurant is not just a restaurant, it's a reggae restaurant. So that's why we have most of the color here, reggae color.
Ebenezer further explains that murals are a mode of expression for artists in every graphic style imaginable, abstract, photorealistic, expressionist, to name just a few.
Anyone who is into painting and had a mural painting into his work will get more job than just ordinary painting. No matter how bad situation a building have, when you design it with artistic, even though if it is hot or old building, when you paint it well with this mural artistic painting, it adds more value to the building, and it makes Lagos look more beautiful than
As a community centerpiece, the wall painting gets a new dimension as a powerful visual communication tool meant to promote the opinion of the people and transmit social and political messages towards unity. Murals bring art into the public space, and because they occupy public spaces, are accessible to everyone regardless of class, education, or ethnicity.
For me, I wanted to change that culture. I didn't believe that until you see a white man or you see a foreigner in the kitchen before you can believe that, you know, good food is going to come out of that kitchen.
You can leverage on each other's spaces and, you know, sell. We believe in Nigeria, right? We believe that Nigeria can get better. We, the youth, are the ones that can make it better.
And my products are proudly made in Nigeria.
Made in Nigeria, showing every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. and repeats on Saturday at 8:30 a.m.
Good morning. I am Messi Abokpo. This is the News Brief. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has for the first time responded to accusation that it failed to follow the Electoral Act of 2022 and also failed to abide by its own guidelines on the mode of collation of result in the last presidential elections. The development comes in response to a petition by the Action People's Party, the APP, before the Presidential Election Petition Court in the FCT. The APP is challenging the result of the presidential poll and the declaration of All Progressive Congress APC standard bearer, Bola Tinubu, on the grounds of alleged substantial non-compliance with the electoral laws of Nigeria, as well as the breach of the INEC guidelines. But in reply to the suit instituted by one of the parties, the APP INEC, through one of his lawyers, Abubakar Mohammed, insisted that it conducted free and fair polls on February 25th. The APP had alleged that INEC breached its own laws and guidelines. However, INEC dismissed the party's argument that the result collation were to be done electronically, citing paragraph 50 to 55 of the regulation guidelines for the conduct of the 2023 presidential election. It also dismissed the allegation that its officials doctored result to favor a particular political party's candidate or there was over-voting. The date for hearing of the 5 petition for the so been received from the People's Democratic Party, the Labour Party, the APP Action Alliance, and the Allied People's Movement is yet to be fixed by the PEPC. Earlier, there was conversation with legal practitioner on the issue, and this is what he had to say.
INEC enacted its own regulation, which is the regulation that was used for this election. And then the regulation in section 38 introduced electronic collation or transmission of results into the system. And after that introduction, because that is the discretion that section 160 gave to of the Constitution gave to INEC to create its own regulation, that the discretion, and to use that to create its own way of managing or carrying out electoral activities. That discretion was done by the enactment of this regulation, and this regulation introduced electronic transmission. So there's no more discretion for INEC. Once it says in section 38 of the regulation that election results will be transmitted from the polling unit by the electoral officers, then it means that there's no longer discretion for INEC to say that they are going to use both manual transmission and electronic transmission, the manual collation and electronic transmission. That would have been possible if that regulation was not enacted, and then INEC went out of its way to inform Nigerians that it is going to transmit results live, real time, from polling units. It gave Nigerians that confidence. And that was why many Nigerians trooped out to the street to carry out their civic responsibility. I do not want to align with the position that INEC has a discretion to now decide on the day of the election to transmit some results and then collect some results manually. So my thinking is that this is an afterthought. This is wrong from inception. INEC has no discretion to transmit results electronically, and it has no discretion to collect results outside the transmission by electronic means that it itself introduced into the regulation.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has told the Presidential Election Petition Court to dismiss a suit filed by Peter Obi of the Labour Party because the reliefs sought are not grantable. Nigeria's electoral body, INEC, disclosed this at its Presidential Election Petition Court Secretariat by its lawyer, Abubakar Mahmood, who is in the FCT. The commission asked the court to dismiss or strike out the suit for being nebulous, generic, grossly incompetent, abusive, vague, general, non-specific, ambiguous, equivocal, hypothetical, and academic. Meanwhile, INEC has fixed Saturday, April the 15th, to conduct elections in polling units where the exercise was suspended in Port Harcourt, 2nd and Gokana Federal Constituency of Rivers State on February 25th. Its spokesperson in Rivers State, General Dean, quoted the resident electoral commissioner, Johnson Aliabido, as saying that the election would be conducted in 42 polling units and at registration area of 04 and 07 in Kana and Gokana. In a statement issued in Port Harcourt, elections would hold in 377 polling units in registration areas of 05, 10 to 18 in Port Harcourt, the 2nd constituency. The People's Democratic Party, PDP governorship candidate and Labour Party's governorship candidate have filed a petition against the All Progressive Congress APC and the Lagos State Governor-elect Babajide Sanwo-Olu. The PDP candidate Abdulaziz Abdur Adediran, also known as Jandor, and the Labour Party Rhodes Vivor separately asked the tribunal to nullify Sanwo-Olu's return and declare them the winner of the poll. The Lagos State Election Petition Tribunal had received a total of 48 petitions in respect of the 2023 elections held on February 25th and March the 18th. The petitions were pasted on the wall of the courthouse in Ikeja, venue of the tribunal sitting. A breakdown of the petition against Sanwo-Olu showed that 4 petitions were filed to challenge the governorship elections. Orders are the Allied People's Movement and the Action People's Party. Rhodes Vivor, who filed a sole petitioner, listed 3 grounds on which his petition was based. He alleged that Sanwo-Olu was not qualified to contest the election at the time the election took place. The People's Democratic Party's spokesperson in Imo State has held governorship primaries today. According to the spokesperson who made this known in a statement, said the primaries would hold at the party's secretariat in Owerri. Samuel Iwayanwu is set to emerge as the governorship candidate. This was after he's the only challenger and former governor Emeka Ihedioha withdrew from the race. Meanwhile, Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike says Dino Melaye, a spokesperson of the People's Democratic Party, PDP's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, cannot be governor of Kogi State. Wike warned that the PDP would fail if Melaye emerged as the governorship candidate. Addressing selected journalists in Port Harcourt, the state capital, Wike stressed that the former Kogi State West Senator lacked the capacity to govern the state.
I mean, the mere fact that you are from Kogi, they are for any Kogi person. No, that's not the truth. This is what we do. When they are going for, you are talking about governance of a state. And we are not talking about drama. This is not what we are talking about. We're talking about governance of a state. For Christ's sake, PDP presents such a candidate, and you mean that Kogi people want development? You see, let us stop this idea that it's from Kogi. It's okay. Take, for example, anybody from Lagos State, because election, then Lagos people just don't vote for him because you're from Lagos. I mean, that can be serious.
Are you saying Dino doesn't have...
Dino does not have what it takes. For Christ's sake. For crying out loud. What is he going to do?
Is that right?
He knows me very well. He knows.
What disqualifies him?
He does not have what it takes to be a governor at all. It's not by coming to add drama on television. No, it's not that. It's not by coming to arise to abuse Wike. It's not that. It's not that. Look, ask Dino when he's saying we're running for governorship. Saraki brought him to me. Ask him. He knows what I'm talking about. He knows. How can you tell me such persons will be governor?
In a swift reaction, a governorship aspirant of the People's Democratic Party, PDP in Kogi State, Dino Melaye, has fired back at Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, who laughed off his aspiration to succeed Governor Yahaya Bello. In a statement on his verified Facebook page, Melaye said Kogi is not Rivers State, where Wike determines who becomes governor, explaining that power belongs to God.
Wike is a pretentious character, is a liar, and he has no integrity, no iota of integrity. Wike was calling me when Atiku Abubakar was to announce his running mates. I have records, and I've printed it out, and I'm waiting for him. He called me 19 times in 2 hours, begging us to convince Atiku Abubakar to make him the vice presidential candidate. So when I see him lying on TV, because of the south of this country, because of southern Nigeria, moving of east to south, you that were lobbying us and begging us, promising us heaven and earth to convince Atiku Abubakar to make him vice presidential candidate, to the extent that he was at the airport. I have a video. He spent hours in the airport waiting for me to call him to say, Atiku, I picked you as he was at the airport here, waiting, calling me. He was calling me, my brother and friend, who's in the Senate together, was also calling me that day. I have witnesses. I even gave the phone to Abdul Mingi to speak with him. I gave the phone to Senator Zameri to speak with him. He was begging all of us, promising heaven and earth. Atiku should announce him. It was around 1 or so that I told him, Oga, nobody will give you vice president. That was when he left and then flew back to. So the man was so desperate to be vice president.
The federal lawmaker representing Ikpoba Federal Constituency of Edo State in the 8th National Assembly, Honorable Johnson Egbona-Ima, has blamed highly placed cabal for the humongous revenue loss in the oil and gas sector. The lawmaker made this allegation at the ongoing public hearing of the alleged loss of over $2.4 billion on revenue from illegal sale of 48 million barrels of crude oil export in 2015, including crude oil export from 2014 up until date. Now, Plus TV's correspondent Emmanuel Hagen reports has been presented from our studios.
The ADA committee was set up on December 2022 after a motion brought before the House by Honorable Ibrahim Ishaka on the need to investigate the serious loss recorded by the country in crude oil sale, amounting to billions of dollars. The Speaker, Femi Bajabiamila, who was represented by Honorable Ishaka in his welcome address, stated that Sections 88 and 89, including the House rule, gave the House power to set up an ADA committee to investigate the alleged crude oil theft. This was buttressed by the chairman of the ADA committee, Honorable Mark Bila, who assured the invited organizations that the aim of the investigation is not to witch hunt, but rather to address corruption.
In the light of the dwindling revenue accruing to the Nigeria from crude oil sales, it was quite alarming to learn about the whistleblowers' allegations that over $2.4 billion in possible revenue by the country was allegedly lost from the sale of 48 million barrels of Nigeria's crude oil cargoes in China.
While we will not allow Nigeria's commonwealth to be stolen and frittered away, we will also have to uphold the very tenets of human rights and the rule of law to say that everybody deserves a right to a fair hearing.
In his submission, a former lawmaker representing Ikpoba Oka Federal Constituency in 8th Legislative Assembly blamed the huge oil theft on the activities of cabals in the country who are determined to detail the wheel of progress in Nigeria.
Through critical NFPC data and the central bank pre-shipment inspection report shows an undeclared crude oil shortfall of 57,830,000 of Nigeria crude oil, translated to well over $17 billion to the United States of America. Also, over $3 billion to China and 839,522,600,000 to Norway.
Oriental Energy and the Nigeria Intelligence Agency were present but could not make submissions, but were however given 1 week to make a presentation. While the NNPC, CBN, AGF, Upstream Regulatory Commission, Ministry of Finance, Account General Office and others all shunned first day of the hearing as the committee adjourned to next week.
The Benue State government has suspended the operations of livestock guards, the state paramilitary agency tasked with enforcing of open grazing prohibition and ranches establishment law of 2017 for a period of 2 weeks to allow all herdsmen within livestock and also within Benue territory to exit. Governor Samuel Otom announced this at the end of the State Secretary or State Security Council meeting in the wake of the killing of over 130 persons within 1 week. He also said security agencies in the state has confirmed the receipt of President Muhammadu Buhari's directive to fish out perpetrators of the mass killings across the state. The Assistant Inspector General of Police in charge of the Force Criminal Investigation Department, Lagos, Frank Mba, has charged the newly promoted officers from the Ogun State Police Command to provide the necessary leadership towards effective security architecture and policing in their respective new offices. He made the charge while decorating some senior police officers, which include an Assistant Commissioner of Police to Deputy Commissioner of Police, 6 Chief Superintendents of Police to Assistant Commissioner of Police, and 14 Superintendent of Police to the rank of the Chief Superintendent of Police. He also asked them to be part of the solution to the current security challenges facing the country and effects on the socioeconomic and political development.
Promotion is a celebration of your past excellence, or what you've done for the force and what you've done for our country and the past. But it is more than that. It is also a recognition of your potentials to do more. And that is where your key responsibilities actually lie. That recognition of your innate and inherent capacity to serve the force, the nation, and our people in bigger capacity going forward is actually the most important component of your promotion.
And outside Africa, former army personnel have been killed in a firing incident at the military station in Indiana border state of the region. Officials say a search for the shooters was in progress. A defense source said an unknown number of shooters were at large at the military station and held ammunition on them. Meanwhile, spokesperson for jailed Russian opposition political party says his health is deteriorating while in custody. In a series of posts on Twitter, it was quoted to say that an ambulance had been called for the Navalny on Friday night due to the acute stomach pain, but had been offered to diagnose or treatment. It was also reported that he had lost 8 kg over the course of 15 days in solitary confinement. The 46-year-old is serving combined sentences of 11.5 years in high security confinement for fraud and contempt of court, and on charges that he says were trumped up on silence on him. And in business news, the World Bank Group president says global growth is expected to weaken in 2023, slowing 2% from 3.1% in 2022. Malpass said this in his opening address at the ongoing spring meeting of 2023 media call. He said several factors were weighing on the second half outlook. The concern is that a slow growth will persist for years for many developing countries, increasing fiscal stress and debt problems. Malpass said the second major problem was that the available global capital was being absorbed by narrow groups of advanced economies that have extremely high government debt levels. And just before we go, in sports, Novak Djokovic briefly ran into Sports Brothers. He fought his way into the third round of the Monte Carlo Masters of a 7-6, 5-6-2 victory against Russia qualifier on Tuesday. The world number 2 had not played a competitive match since early March when he reached the final at the Dubai Tennis Championship, where Serb was forced to skip Indiana Wells and the Miami Open because of his COVID-19 vaccination status, while he struggled to find his range to the Monte Carlo clay before prevailing on a sunlit center court. The double French Open champion, who suffered an opening round exit in Monte Carlo last year, will face an Italian in the next season. And that's the news brief. For more stories, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. You can also view us on Limex at www.limex.tv and Glow TV apps anywhere in the world. I am Messi Bokpo, and thanks for watching. Have a good morning.
for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria with 351,861 hectares of land, is the authentic home of every tribe and tongue in Nigeria. The state, though small in landmass, is controversially the most populous state in the country. One of the neighborhoods in the state is Obalende, located in a Tiosa local government area. The area is strategically a historic site because before the relocation of administrative capital from Lagos to Abuja, it was the seat of power of the military head of state, the Dodon Barrack. Historically, a Royal West African Frontier Force, predominantly Hausa men, were initially camped on the land where the famous King's College is situated. Then there was a need for the use of the land, and the Oba of Lagos was said to have pressured the governor of Lagos to resettle the Hausa men and sold the land in what is now Obalende to the British colonial masters. After resettlement in the purchased land, the Royal West Africa Frontier Force men named the place Ibiti Obalewade, which translates to the place where the king drove us to. Obalende, though crowded, is famous for its nightlife and for its suya sport, with a junction popularly called Suya Junction. For ease of administration, former governor of Lagos State, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, created additional 37 local council development areas from the existing 20 local council areas. So the current Obalende is carved out under Ikoyi Obalende Local Council Development Area. Ikorodu town is another historic location in Lagos, located in the northeast area of the state along the Lagos Lagoon and shares a boundary with Ogun State. Currently, the town houses Ikorodu local government area and 5 local council development areas. Kabiru Shotobi is the king of Ikorodu, traditionally known as Ayogbunre of Ikorodu, who ascended the throne from October 24, 2015. The name Ikorodu came about from people whose ancestors descended from the Remo stock of Yoruba tribe who came to settle on a plateau and named it Ikorodu, a shortened word from Oko Odu, which literally means Odu, farm. The current metro area population of Ikorodu in 2021 is 989,000, a 5.44% increase from 2020. Trading, farming, and manufacturing are some of the things Ikorodu is known for. Ikeja is the capital of Lagos State, formerly called Akeja. It was named after a deity of the Awori people of Ota, who originally settled there. The area was invaded for slaves until the mid-19th century. Ikeja, an abbreviation meaning of Ikorodu and Ekpe joint administration, was coined by colonial administrators for ease of administration. It is the official seat of the governor of the state, where the state secretariat is also located. It is also where the domestic and international airports are located. Its population as of 2006 census is 330,196. Ikeja is home to one of West Africa's largest gadget markets, popularly known as Computer Village, and home to a shopping mall known as Ikeja City Mall, which is the biggest mall in Lagos mainland and also has a cinema. These are some interesting places that make Lagos a world-class destination.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports on Plus TV Africa. My name is Mikhail Tinubu. Welcome on the show. Now, of course, you had the pleasure of watching the Champions League match last night between Manchester City at the Etihad against Bayern Munich, a European powerhouse, who have won the Champions League 7 times but are currently going through a change of management, with Thomas Tuchel taking over his first Champions League match for the Bavarians. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out as well the board in Bayern Munich would have hoped, as Manchester City appeared in total control in a surgical second-half dismantling of Bayern Munich on Tuesday, April 11th. But Pep Guardiola looked aghast when a reporter asked if it was the most comfortable he and his team have felt this season. Nevertheless, City took a huge step towards a first Champions League title with a 3-0 victory over the visiting German powerhouse in the first leg of the quarterfinals. Scoring machine Erling Haaland netted his 45th goal of the campaign, a single-season record for a Premier League player in his maiden campaign. Rodri with a highlight reel strike, and Bernardo Silva also scored, taking City's extraordinary goal differential to 34-3 in their last 9 games. Still, Guardiola said there would be no resting easy until they have faced his former team at Allianz Arena next Wednesday, April 19th.
It was not comfortable at all. Emotionally, I'm destroyed. I have 10